And for the other side, we welcome Mark Sawyer. He is a political science professor at UCLA, joining us from Los Angeles. So, Mark, do you think it's constitutional or not?
The Commerce Clause gives broad powers to Congress to regulate these issues. It's the basis of our civil rights laws, a bunch of things we do. So I think the judge doesn't have a leg to stand on, and I think I'll be happy to have Nancy Pelosi take her shot at the Supreme Court on this one.
Okay, so you think that in a fair Supreme Court battle, even though the Supreme Court is kind of hard to judge these days on a whole range of issues, it certainly, I think, would be a close decision, don't you?
No. This one is
Wouldn't
not
even be
close. There'd be a whole bunch of laws that would be invalidated. He's offering a very tortured read of the Constitution. I mean, he even said some things that weren't true. The idea that abortion existed in the ancient world, the idea that it didn't exist when the Constitution was written, is just garbage.
Well, no. It existed. Mark, hold on a second. Don't get caught in something, a side issue. Obviously, abortion existed. The question of whether it was legal or not,
right.
That's the question. But what other things are we required to do that in your mind are similar to what we will be required to do by the Senate bill?
We're required to pay taxes, but I think the big important thing that we all need to recognize is that, look, we all pay anyway. That's why you pay $100 and when you go to the hospital for a bottle of orange juice, it's because you're paying for the guy who decides that he doesn't want to have insurance.
Okay, well, we can argue the point of whether that's the best way to deal with that issue, because granted, there are a lot of people who don't have insurance that cost everybody a lot of money in terms of the care that they receive in emergency wards. But specifically taxes, you mentioned taxes as something that's similar. That's something that everybody has to pay. There's a uniform aspect to taxes that would not make it in violation of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. But this is something that where you are singled out if you choose not to do something that you don't now have to do.
You're singled out. You pay certain taxes if you have certain kinds of behavior. You pay some taxes if you own a home, other taxes if you don't. So the idea that everyone will have to pay something.
But why isn't this a tax?
See,
Mark, if it was just a tax, I would say, okay, I see your point. But it's not. They're trying to avoid it. They're trying to collect us all into this one universally protected group. They don't want to call it universal health care. You at least have the honesty to say you're for universal health care. They don't want to say that, and this is a way of them getting around that.
Yeah, it's a pragmatic and less than perfect solution.
It's a phony way of getting towards universal health care without admitting that's what you're in favor of. Because we know Nancy Pelosi wants it. We know President Obama wants it. We know they all want it. And this is well, look, the reason they're doing this, as you do know, is because they simply don't have the money to insure 31 million people. And this is one way of doing it, one way of balancing the insurance for everybody, even those with pre-existing conditions.
Well, no, a lot of the 31 million people who aren't insured are people who can't afford insurance. They're young people, people like I know, who land up in emergency rooms when they don't go get care, when they have things like appendicitis and it bursts, and we spend thousands of dollars fixing them up and they can't pay.
See, Mark, my answer to that, Mark, if you're at all interested, is catastrophic insurance. Catastrophic insurance, I can understand if you want to deal with that, because it costs $30 billion a year to care for those people who are uninsured in the hospitals across. But that's a hell of a lot less than what we might eventually have to feed in this monster of universal health care. But I do appreciate that you're at least honest enough. You're at least honest enough to say that you're in favor of universal health care.
Well, you have to have a system where more people get in and more people are paying in the system in order for us to bring costs down. You have to spread the costs around so that the hospital doesn't have to charge you, $200 for some orange juice.
Catastrophic
to cover
insurance
for the people who aren't paying.
catastrophic insurance for those. If you're in your 20s, you don't need anything else but catastrophic insurance. You don't need anything else.
What if you break your arm?
You can pay for it out of your own pocket, even if it takes a while, as people like me who were uninsured in their 20s had to do. But we got to leave it at Mark. We got to move on. Please come back. This debate is far from over. We're going to have you back to talk about it more.
I love talking to you about it. And yes, go for universal health insurance, but we're far from it yet. We're just taking the first steps.
Well, you and Dennis Kucinich are upfront about it, and we like you for that reason. Mark Sawyer, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Take care.